Back in 2014, Star Citizen ran a contest called the Next Great Starship, where participants had to design a ship concept to be introduced into the game. The winning concept was a ship called the Redeemer. Fast forward to the end of 2021 and the ship has been revamped, re-engineered and released as a flight-ready ship. But how well has it survived the trip? I'm Forrester, and in this video I try to answer that question by spending some time reviewing the currently flyable Aegis Redeemer gunship / dropship. For those of you who've seen other ship reviews on this channel, the format will be familiar. This video is split into 5 sections, starting with a ship tour, assessing combat performance, reviewing handling and visibility, looking at the operating costs before finally summarising. I've included timestamps in the video description in case you want to skip ahead. And if you're one of the 3/4 of people watching who isn't yet subscribed to the channel, you may choose to subscribe to be notified of future videos as they go live. Alright, let's start with the tour for the Redeemer. And access into the ship is via a ramp that deploys at the rear of the vessel. This ramp might look familiar to Vanguard owners. There are touchpads on each of the doors which control as they open. The bottom deck of the Redeemer is almost like a habitation deck. There's cargo storage on the left or port side, and opposite it on the right or starboard side are ablutions with a little shower cubbyhole. Moving further forward, there are various wardrobe and storage modules. The wardrobes deploy outward, and the storage modules will give access to the ship inventory. There are 4 beds, 2 on each side of the ship. That ship inventory is fairly considerable, able to store a number of items for the crew. And then right at the front of the lower deck is some storage for food, water and such goodies. On the right or starboard side at the front of the lower deck is the ladder which leads to the upper deck. There is a small door which opens and closes on the ladder which almost feels like it airlocks the ship. The upper deck is where the majority of the combat happens. On the left or port side there is a weapons rack, as well as 4 drop seat style chairs for the crew. Moving towards the rear of the Redeemer, there's a compartment which houses a lot of engineering access, as well as the rear main turret. This is one of the size 5 manned turrets. The components are neatly sealed behind some doors. Moving further forward towards the front of the Redeemer. This is the second manned turret, which is just beneath the nose of the Redeemer. There's a small panel on the right or starboard side for easy access. Then, on both the port and starboard side, there are 2 seats for remote turret gunners. And then right at the front is the pilot's chair. As you might expect from a gunship, the Redeemer is absolutely bristling with weapons. The pilot controls 2 fixed size 4 ballistic cannons mounted beneath the wings, and currently the pilot also controls a turret beneath the nose equipped with dual size 3 laser cannons. In addition, there are 2 manned size 5 turrets, both armed with dual size 5 ballistic Gatling guns, and at the back there is a second remote turret armed with dual size 3 laser cannons. That means that at the moment, although there are 5 crew stations, the effective crew is really 4, since the pilot can fire the nose remote turret. In combat, you probably want at least a second player to operate one of the turrets with the big guns. Although it is quite possible to fly the Redeemer solo, you're missing out on a lot of firepower, and the pilot armament isn't as heavy as you would get in some other, more specialised craft. With gunners, the Redeemer is incredibly effective. This is a combat machine, and it shows. Each of the main turrets offers similar damage to what you would find on a hammerhead turret, which gives you a flavour for just how strong this ship is. Furthermore, with gunners aboard, the Redeemer can cover a 360-degree sphere really effectively, meaning even against smaller, more nimble craft, there's not many places to hide. That armament is augmented by the inclusion of 16 size 2 missiles, which give the Redeemer some extra punching power. These can be upgraded to missiles up to size 4, although the stock loadout gives the Redeemer a lot of options. Defensively, the Redeemer carries dual size 3 shield generators, which is incredible for a ship of this size. That's double what you get on a Constellation, for example, and on a par with the Hammerhead. So, unsurprisingly, this is a combat powerhouse. Visibility out of the pilot's cockpit in the Redeemer is okay. Generally, you can see out to the front, and the cockpit position right at the front and top of the bird makes it slightly easier to fly. But there are a few metal struts that do slightly obstruct your vision, and despite the inclusion of a small triangular glass panel at your feet, visibility below is not the best. Handling wise, it's a similar story. This is a big bird and flies like it. The Constellation feels like a good point of reference, so you can expect the Redeemer to be sluggish during the turns and to carry momentum even at SCM speeds. The SCM speed is 140 meters per second with a top straight line speed of 960 meters per second. The Redeemer accelerates well but is a little slower to brake, and naturally a lot has been made of the unusual style of the engines, which have been variously compared to a nutcracker or a set of hair straighteners. The stock quantum drive on the Redeemer is actually okay and offers a good range across the whole Stanton system, although the upgrade to the XL1 is probably still worth doing at some point. If you're in port with the Redeemer, you can expect to pay thousands of Alpha UEC to rearm, refuel and repair it. Probably 4 figures or low 5 figures depending on how much ammo you've fired from the main turrets and the missile stores. That's fairly reasonable for a ship of this size and with the potential that the Redeemer offers. As a ship with an internalised physics grid, all of the options around running delivery type options are available and somewhat feasible. There's 2 cargo units of storage, which frankly isn't worth trading anything with at the moment, and there's plenty of weapons racks if you're wanting to drop in and do some first person combat. But the bread and butter for the Redeemer is unsurprisingly ship to ship combat. The Redeemer at time of recording will do pretty much anything you throw it at, assuming you have the turrets manned, and with a relatively small crew of 2 or 3 people, even sharing the rewards, that makes for some considerable sums by stringing together missions. By way of changes to loadout, I'd suggest replacing the crossfield with an XL1, and if you're wanting more staying power in longer engagements, probably swapping out the fixed size 4 cannons for Rhino repeaters, and swapping out the size 5 weapons on the turrets for M7A lasers. If you're really wanting to min-max, maybe upgrading the shields to FR86 generators, but all of that represents a significant investment, so you'll want to be taking out the Redeemer regularly to make it worth it. Let's start with the things that are great about the Redeemer. Firstly, obviously, the Redeemer is an absolute combat powerhouse. It's right up there with the best combat ships in the entire game right now, and moreover, it's versatile, able to engage a range of targets of different size points. It's still relatively small itself compared to some of the real big boys, so it's really easy to fly, and you don't have to worry about complex docking procedures. The looks are befitting a beast of a gunship like this. For example, the landing gear looks like what you might find on an Apache helicopter gunship. The downsides? Well, you really need a crew to operate the Redeemer properly. Whilst a solo pilot can fly around and do Dakar, without the support of turret gunners, the Redeemer becomes easily swarmed by smaller fighters that can stay out of the front field of fire. Whilst it has all of the creature comforts in terms of beds, a shower and what have you, the inclusion of 2 SEU of cargo storage capacity seems borderline pointless. And although there are 4 seats in the top deck which make the Redeemer seem almost like it kept its dropship credentials, those 4 seats are nowhere near the number you might find on a Valkyrie or Prowler. And whilst the ammunition stores for the large size 5 weapons give you a few engagements worth of ammo, for the pilot-controlled ballistic cannons, it seems to run out fast. Or maybe I'm just trigger happy. And then there's the price. The Redeemer comes in at $325. You can see that in a few different ways. On the one hand, it's much cheaper than the Valkyrie, Prowler, 600i, or even the Hammerhead, many of which are ships that the Redeemer should see as competition. On the other hand, it's more expensive than the Constellation Andromeda, and although the combat performance is fairly undeniably better with the Redeemer, the Andromeda is a much more versatile ship, able to do more things than just combat, as well as arguably a better option for a solo player. So where does that leave the Redeemer? I find this one really tough. It's an absolute combat king, that much is for sure, but only with crew. So I guess my thoughts would be, if you know you want to be a big dog in the combat scene, and you know you'll always have people to fly with, then maybe the Redeemer would be worth it for you. If you're looking for something to operate solo, perhaps you might consider something cheaper. But do you agree? Do you have romantic notions of deploying the Redeemer out of a Javelin hangar bay and blasting everything in your path? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button, as it helps me to know what you're finding most helpful. Otherwise, as always, thank you for watching.